Jared Goff and Sean McVay have figured out and done very well. We know that McVay likes to give Goff 2 play calls at the line. He lets Goff scout what he sees and picks one. Something that Goff was doing in that game, he was looking at the big board. He was looking at the overview of the Dallas defense. He was looking at signals, at tells. And that's something that McVay has done great with Goff and that offense. He has found those key things that you need to find. And the edge in that game was coaching. And if the Cowboys want to get to the next level, I know that they're saying they're going to keep their offensive coordinator, Scott Linehan, but I think this team needs to make major changes. And it may be a total overhaul. Because you do have the talent. You do have the talent. That trade for Cooper ended up being a great trade. I don't think that they get into the playoffs if they don't make that trade for Amari Cooper. But there's got to be changes made there. The Jason Garrett era, I think we have seen where it's going to get us. You're about to have to pay Prescott, Elliott, and if you want to keep Cooper, you're going to have to pay him too, which they can afford to do. They can afford to pay all three and not hurt them cap-wise. But then you got to look at coaching because you got to sit there and start to say, okay, we've got a lot of talent. We're not going to have this for long. We need to figure out what we need to do here. Because in that game, the difference was the coaching. What McVay was doing with Goff, how the Rams came out and said, hey, they were tipping their hand. We could tell what they were doing. Goff was looking at the Titantron to get an overview of the Dallas defense to look for small tells and signals. That's coaching, folks. Those little things make big differences in games. And that's why they got gashed so bad in the running game. The defensive line was tipping their hand. The Rams have said, we knew what they were going to do once they got to the line. That is coaching, folks. That is what great coaching does. Belichick did it with Patriots against the Chargers. McVay did it with the Rams against Dallas. Those little tidbits of things is what wins you games. In Dallas, they need to sit here and say, is it time to overhaul? Is this as far as we going to go with this staff? Because they need to make changes. Because let's not forget, before Cooper got there, that offense was Manila. That offense was like an offense you would find in Madden 19. It was a simple pass run, little dink and dunk offense that just was not working. When Cooper got there, it added that threat. It opened up the field. But still then, they're not getting the most out of that team. And nothing against Jason Garrett and Scott Linehan. But you get to a point where you've got to say, is this as far as we're going to go? Is it time to hire new guys and make adjustments? And I think for Dallas, this is the time. In a year where you're going to have to pay Prescott and you're going to have to pay Elliott, and if you want to keep Cooper, you've got to pay him too. You need to sit there and say, if we're forking up, almost said a bad word there on iHeartRadio. If we're forking up all this money to this young talent, and if we're sold on Prescott being the guy that can take us to that big game, and they have the talent to do it, is it time to make coaching changes? And I think it's that time. And look, Jerry Jones, I know he hasn't done it lately, but he's not ashamed to take chances. He got rid of Landry Jones for Jimmy Johnson. Then he sent Jimmy Johnson out the door, which was a terrible decision. But he's not afraid to take chances. And don't be surprised, even if Lincoln Riley has signed that extension with Oklahoma and says that he's going to be there to the end, Don't be surprised if they make some pursuits here. Because if you're going to pay Prescott, Elliott, and Cooper, you have got to start to say, look, yes, it's been great. Yes, 3 out of the 5 seasons we've won the division and we've got past, first round of the playoffs. But you have got to look at, is this as far as we're going to go? Because when it comes down to it, with guys like Sean Payton and McVay in your conference, you need to have an edge in coaching. And right now, Dallas doesn't have that. Dallas lost that game on Saturday because of coaching. Just like the Chargers got outcoached by New England, Dallas got outcoached by the Rams and that staff. And I think, nothing against Jason Garrett and Scott Linehan, but I think it's time to make changes. You've got the younger talent. You have got the guys to do it. It's time to make the changes. Like I said, you got to take a chance. When teams hire new head coaches that everybody sits there and says, well, where the hell did he come from? You got to take a chance, folks. Nobody can sit there with a crystal ball and say that little Billy in Florida is going to be the next Belichick. You don't know. You've got to go out there and make those reaches and take those chances. And I think for Dallas, it's time to do that. Because, look, they got a lot farther this season than what anybody expected. And I applaud Garrett and that staff for that. But eventually, you get to a point where you run into a Sean Payton, where you run into a Sean McVay in the postseason. And if you don't have the right people in the right places and the right staff, you're not going to win that game. Plain and simple. I think it's time for Dallas to make some serious coaching changes if they want to make that next jump. Well, Juju Smith-Schuster said that he wants Antonio Brown to stay. Look, this is a mess. This is a mess. He's a diva receiver, and what's sad about this is a lot of this stemmed from because Juju Smith-Schuster was picked as the MVP of the team, and Antonio Brown got upset about it and got in a fight with Big Ben in practice because he said he wasn't getting enough passes and didn't like being told to do a route again and all this. You don't need somebody like that on your team. You don't need a distraction like that. I highly doubt. At this point, I would be very surprised if Antonio Brown is a Steeler next season. I would be very surprised. And what's sad is when you look at the numbers for that team. Top 5 in rushing, top 5 in passing. Ben was number 1 overall in passing yards. You had a top 10 defense and you don't make the playoffs. That says a lot. And I do think Mike Tomlin needs to change his philosophy a little bit. He gives guys too much freedom. Needs to put his foot down. Needs to throw his weight around. But if you have a receiver there that gets mad at his quarterback for telling him to run a route again and throws a football at him, or he gets upset because the team made Juju Smith-Schuster the team MVP, if you have a receiver or player like that on your team, he doesn't need to be there. Because him doing those things says one thing and one thing only. He only cares about the name on the back of that jersey. He doesn't care about what's on the helmet. He doesn't care about he only cares about himself. If he's upset about things like that, that's stupid stuff to be upset about. Stupid. And if you're that much of a wide receiver diva, don't need you. We'll get another one. We'll dump the $21 million. We'll trade you. We'll get a couple draft picks. See ya. And I think that's what's going to happen here. It's sad because with that talent, with what they had, they should have had a Super Bowl and they didn't get it. But Art Rooney's a very smart owner. And He can very easily make adjustments, and I don't think, you look, Connor picked up right where Bell left off. They'll find somebody to fill Antonio Brown's shoes. Yes, it's going to hurt, but you'll find somebody. And you got to sit there and also think Big Ben is in his final couple of seasons. You don't have much of a window here. It's time for the Steelers to move on. That does it for the show tonight, folks. Hope that all of you enjoyed it. We'll see you all here tomorrow night for Sports Talk Speaker Radio for iHeartRadio.com. I'm Travis B. Have a great and safe evening. We'll see you tomorrow.